Cheryl Miller just broke her silence and said what millions of fans have been thinking all along. Team USA never wanted Caitlin Clark, and the basketball legend didn't hold back explaining exactly why. The entire internet exploded within minutes. Cheryl exposed the politics, the jealousy, and the deliberate attempts to keep Caitlin in her place. This is the reality check everyone needed to hear. Before we get into Cheryl's explosive comments, tell me in the comments, do you think Team USA is deliberately trying to hold Caitlin back, or is this all just coincidence? I need to hear your take on this. I'm going to be honest because it needs to be said, I could relate to that young lady, and I felt for her. I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my skin color, yeah. I can't imagine this young lady, I don't want to use hate, but despised, and people just have it. And look, she brought some on herself a little because she's cocky for a good reason, confident, and I love that about her. But to watch the dynamics and the media, they had their narrative, and I was pleased and proud to see the narrative wasn't. Cheryl Miller didn't whisper. She didn't hint around the subject. She didn't use carefully worded corporate speak to avoid ruffling feathers. She went on record and said exactly what millions of basketball fans have been screaming into the void for months. Caitlin Clark is being deliberately held back by the very people who should be celebrating her. And when Cheryl Miller speaks, people listen. This isn't some random commentator trying to get clicks. This is a basketball icon, a Hall of Famer, someone who knows exactly what it's like to be the biggest name in women's basketball and face resistance because of it. Cheryl's words were direct and devastating. She said, Caitlin Clark changed basketball, and that is exactly why they fear her. Let that sink in. Not, they're jealous of her. Not, they don't understand her impact. They fear her. Fear what she represents. Fear how quickly she rose. Fear that she didn't follow their script or come up through their system. And most importantly, fear that she's bigger than the institution itself. You recently coached a WNBA All-Star game. You spent some time with Caitlin Clark. From day one, Caitlin brought something to women's basketball that the sport had been desperately lacking. Mainstream attention. She brought ratings that leagues dream about. She brought sold-out arenas. She brought families who had never watched a WNBA game in their lives tuning in just to see what the hype was about. She made women's basketball appointment viewing for millions of people. And what did she get in return? Hard fouls with no consequences. Suspicious rotations where she'd get benched at crucial moments. Zero protection from officials when opponents targeted her. The infamous elbow incident that somehow wasn't considered flagrant. And excuse after excuse after excuse. The fact that if I'm insecure, if I got my own mental issues going on, who'd I talk to? I don't regret being born when I was, right? I'm in the right place at the right time. It's just been fascinating to watch these young ladies come up and now take the baton and take it to a different level. Cheryl Miller finally said what nobody inside Team USA had the courage to admit. They don't want Caitlin because she overshadows everyone. This wasn't speculation or reading between the lines. Cheryl laid it out plainly. Every time a young superstar threatens the established hierarchy, every time someone becomes bigger than the system that's supposed to contain them, that system pushes back. It's not personal, it's institutional. And Caitlin Clark didn't just become big, she became the global face of basketball at 22 years old. That's the threat. That's what makes people uncomfortable. According to Cheryl, this isn't just opinion. This is based on years of behavior she's witnessed throughout her career and continues to see play out. The pattern is consistent. Team USA, like many established organizations, operates with a certain hierarchy. There's an order to things. Rookies pay their dues, veterans get preferential treatment, you earn your spot gradually through the system. But Caitlin blew past all of that. She arrived already famous, already influential, already carrying more cultural weight than players who'd been in the league for a decade. That disrupts the natural order. And disruption makes people defensive. Is she getting hyped? Yeah, but she was in the backyard. She was putting in the same time. It's a plus maybe more than you were, right? And I can't fault her for what she was given, but I mean, look, as much as she was given, you can't tell me if that door would have swung the other way where she didn't live up to the hype. So, with that being said, you big dummies, you getting paid now, right? Everybody now has an opportunity to pull up their chair and have a seat. Cheryl pointed out something crucial that many fans have noticed but couldn't quite articulate. Team USA is connected to the same politics we see playing out in the WNBA. Favoritism exists. Power circles exist. Veteran loyalty exists. There are inside politics that determine who gets opportunities and who doesn't. And there's very little room for a new star who wasn't built by their system. Caitlin wasn't developed through USA basketball youth programs. She didn't come up through their pipeline. She didn't follow their predetermined path. She came from Iowa with her own massive fan base already in place, her own spotlight already shining, and her own narrative already written. That threatened people who were used to controlling those narratives. Here's where Cheryl really dropped the hammer. She said Team USA had already made up their mind months before any roster discussions even happened. The plan was clear from the beginning. Protect the veterans. Keep the old guard as the face of the program. And never let someone new get the keys to the kingdom. Caitlin Clark was never going to be welcomed with open arms. She was going to be managed, controlled, kept quiet, and handled like a problem that needed solving rather than a generational talent that should be celebrated. But Caitlin didn't play by those unspoken rules. She just played basketball the way the entire world fell in love with. She handled it in a graceful way as well. Some of your peers, they will recognize, her game, but they won't recognize her impact. Think about that for a second. A 22-year-old player potentially outdrawing 10-year veterans in ratings and attention. A single athlete generating more buzz, more highlights, more discussion than the entire roster combined. More social media engagement. More merchandise sales. More mainstream media coverage. Team USA wasn't ready for that reality. The system certainly wasn't designed to accommodate it. So instead of embracing it and building the program around their most marketable and talented player, they pushed back. And fans noticed everything. The cold body language from certain teammates. The weird rotations that made no basketball sense. The unnecessary hard fouls that went uncalled or were called as common fouls when they should have been flagrants. The constant criticism for things that other players were actively praised for doing. The double standards were glaring and impossible to ignore. Cheryl said something that hit hard. You don't treat the most impactful young player in basketball like this unless you're trying to send a message. And what's that message? Stay in your lane. Know your place. Don't climb too fast. Don't outshine the people we've already decided are supposed to be the faces of this program. Don't disrupt the hierarchy we've spent years building. But Caitlin kept climbing anyway. Every game brought another incredible performance. Every shot from 30 feet that somehow went in. Every no-look pass that defied physics. Every sold-out arena. Every viral highlight that dominated social media for days. And each time she rose higher, the resistance intensified. Cheryl revealed what many suspected but few would say publicly. Caitlin Clark is being punished for being great. Not for being difficult. Not for being problematic. Not for breaking rules or causing drama. For being undeniably, historically, generationally great at basketball. And that greatness makes people uncomfortable when it doesn't fit into their predetermined plans. Millions of fans felt this throughout the season. Parents watching with their kids felt it. Young girls who looked up to Caitlin felt it. Even NBA players noticed and tweeted about the obvious targeting and lack of protection. But no one from inside the system, no one with Cheryl Miller's credibility and platform, had actually said it out loud until now. That's what makes this moment so significant. Then Cheryl addressed the jersey number controversy, which on the surface seems petty, but actually represents something much deeper. She said Team USA handled it horribly. Instead of having a respectful conversation with Caitlin about the situation, instead of making her feel valued and finding a solution that worked for everyone, They made it look like she was being difficult for wanting something every athlete wants: consistency and respect. They made her feel like an inconvenience, like she was causing problems by having the audacity to care about the number she's worn her entire career. And that's become synonymous with her brand. That's when fans absolutely lost it, millions of them, because it confirmed what they'd been seeing all along. This wasn't about logistics or policies or standard procedures. This was about putting Caitlyn in her place, about reminding her that she doesn't run things, they do, about asserting control over someone who had become too powerful too quickly. And Cheryl called it out for exactly what it was. The third bombshell Cheryl dropped was that Team USA was divided internally about Clark. Some coaches wanted her on the roster and recognized her value. Others didn't want her taking the spotlight from established players. Some teammates supported her and welcomed the attention she brought. Others resented the media focus being on one person instead of the collective. Some executives loved the ratings boost and sponsor interest. Others hated the attention and preferred the program to operate the way it always had. A divided room, a rising superstar, and a massive spotlight that nobody could escape created the perfect storm for dysfunction. This wasn't about basketball. This was pure politics. And Cheryl's voice reportedly cracked with emotion when she said, "Caitlyn Clark plays the game the right way, and she is being punished for it." That line resonated across the entire basketball community because it perfectly captured the absurdity and injustice of the situation. Here's a player who does everything you'd want. She works incredibly hard, she makes her teammates better, she handles media responsibilities professionally. She shows up every single game. She doesn't create off-court drama. She represents the sport beautifully, and somehow, she's the one being treated like a problem. Cheryl emphasized that this pattern extended far beyond just Team USA decisions. This was about the entire season, the hard fouls that never resulted in suspensions for the offenders, the shoves that were called incidental contact when they were clearly intentional, the targeting that officials somehow never noticed despite it being obvious to everyone watching, the disrespect from opponents who felt comfortable taking cheap shots because they knew there would be no real consequences, the jealousy that manifested in passive-aggressive comments during interviews, the fake narratives about her being overrated or only successful because of favorable officiating or weak competition. And through all of it, the silence from people in positions of power who should have spoken up. The WNBA didn't protect her adequately. Team USA didn't prioritize her. Certain media members actively tried to diminish her accomplishments. And Cheryl Miller watched all of this happen and finally decided enough was enough. Someone with credibility needed to call it what it was. Someone who understood the politics of women's basketball from the inside needed to expose the truth. What makes Cheryl's comments so powerful is that she's been where Caitlyn is now. She was the biggest name in women's basketball in her era. She faced her own version of resistance and jealousy and people trying to keep her in her place. She understands the unique pressure that comes with being the face of an entire sport. She knows what it's like when your success makes other people uncomfortable. And she's not going to stay silent while she watches history repeat itself with Caitlyn. Cheryl also addressed the broader context that many casual fans might not fully understand. She talked about how different the pressure is for this generation compared to when she played. The social media scrutiny, the brand responsibilities, the financial expectations, the constant public commentary, the mental health challenges of being under a microscope 24/7. She said today's players are dealing with things her generation never had to navigate, and that makes what Caitlyn has accomplished even more impressive. But instead of that pressure being acknowledged and support being provided, Caitlyn faced additional obstacles that were completely unnecessary and entirely political. Cheryl made it clear that the resistance Caitlyn encountered had nothing to do with her ability or her character. It was purely about people protecting their positions, maintaining control, and refusing to adapt to a changing landscape where a new star had emerged who was bigger than they were comfortable with. The reaction to Cheryl's comments was immediate and massive. Social media exploded with people expressing relief that finally, someone with real credibility was saying what they'd been thinking. Former players started speaking up with their own observations that confirmed Cheryl's points. Media members who had been hesitant to rock the boat suddenly felt more comfortable discussing the obvious politics at play. And fans who had felt gaslit for months, being told they were imagining the targeting and disrespect, finally felt validated. Team USA officials have been noticeably quiet in response to Cheryl's comments, which is telling in itself. When someone of Cheryl Miller's stature makes allegations this serious, you'd expect an immediate and forceful denial if they weren't true. The silence suggests there's truth to what she's saying, and they're trying to figure out how to manage the public relations damage without admitting fault. So there you have it. Cheryl Miller said what needed to be said, and the basketball world is still processing the fallout. Caitlin Clark deserves better than the treatment she's received, and now everyone knows it.